Imagine a movie so devastating it doesn't just make you cry, it shatters your trust in humanity. That's The Dark Side of the Heart at number 5, a poetic nightmare of love and despair. At number 4, Of Mice and Men delivers a gut punch of friendship and tragedy that haunts you for days. But those are just appetizers. The top 3? They're cinematic soul crushers that will leave you hollow. And the number 1 film, one name, one true story, one institution that failed children, you'll never forget the final scene. Oliverio is a poet in Buenos Aires searching for a woman who can fly. Not literally, he wants a lover whose soul matches his own, unafraid of love's impossible heights. That's the starting point of The Dark Side of the Heart, a film that feels like a fever dream you can't wake from. It's ranked number 5 because it weaponizes poetry against the mundane, crafting a love story that doesn't just break your heart. It dismantles your idea of what love should be. What comes next will leave you without a single intact belief about what it means to be human. Imagine watching a dream die in slow motion. That's what Of Mice and Men does to you. It shatters your soul with quiet devastation. Based on John Steinbeck's 1937 novella, this 1992 film adaptation is not just another literary classic, it's a masterpiece of emotional brutality. Directed by Gary Sinise, who also plays George, the film stays painfully close to Steinbeck's text. But here's the thing most people don't know. Sinise and John Malkovich, who plays Lenny, had been performing this story live on stage for years before making the movie. They toured across the US, including a prison performance at San Quentin. That experience fed into the film's raw authenticity. Malkovich actually visited psychiatric hospitals to study Lenny's mannerisms. He's nearly 6'2", yet he inhabits the role with such childlike vulnerability that you forget he's acting. The budget was only $5 million, tiny for a period film, and it grossed barely $5.5 million domestically. Yet critics still praise it as the definitive screen version. Filmed entirely in California, the Salinas Valley and Mount Whitney doubling for the ranch and the river, the landscapes mirror the characters' isolation. The music by Mark Isham is spare, haunting, like a held breath. Then there's the moment that makes you gasp. No spoiler, but it involves a simple act of mercy. Audiences have wept in theaters for decades. It's ranked number 4 because it doesn't hit you with action or spectacle, it hits you with truth. A truth so simple, it hurts. Some dreams are too fragile to survive. The film makes you feel the weight of friendship, the burden of responsibility, and the cruelty of a world that crushes the innocent. When the credits roll, you're not sad, you're hollow, as if something inside you also died. But here's the thing. If this movie left you shattered, what comes next makes this look ordinary. If this movie left you shattered, what comes next makes this look ordinary. Imagine being an actor on a film set, and the director hands you a gun. Not a prop, a real gun, and tells you to fire it at your co-star. That's the level of insanity behind Man Bites Dog, a Belgian mockumentary that doesn't just push boundaries, it obliterates them. This film follows a documentary crew filming a serial killer named Ben. But here's the twist. The crew becomes complicit in his murders. They start suggesting kills. They help cover them up. The line between observer and participant dissolves completely. Director Remy Belveau shot the film on a shoestring budget of just $30,000, using his own apartment and family loans. The actors often improvised, and the violence is so realistic because it was shot with handheld cameras on actual locations. No permits, no crew safety protocols. One actor, Benoit Poelvoorde, was so convincing that passers-by called the police multiple times. Critics were divided. Some called it brilliant satire on media violence. Others, a disgusting snuff film. At Cannes, it won the Critics' Week Grand Prix, but audiences walked out in droves. The film cost $30,000 and grossed over $10 million worldwide. But its real value is in its haunting question, are we all just voyeurs? The film refuses to let you feel clean. You leave with a profound discomfort, like you've been complicit too. It shatters your soul because it mirrors back your own morbid curiosity. If you thought this was intense, what comes next makes it look like a romantic comedy. If you thought this was intense, what comes next makes it look like a romantic comedy. Catherine Earnshaw's ghost has been scratching at the window for nearly 2 centuries, but the 1992 film adaptation of Wuthering Heights doesn't just honor Emily Bronte's novel, it drags you into the moors and refuses to let you go. Ralph Fiennes, in his film debut as Heathcliff, was so immersed in the role that he insisted on doing his own stunts, including a brutal horse riding scene that nearly broke his ankle. The director, Peter Kosminski, shot the entire film on location in North Yorkshire, where the cast endured freezing temperatures and relentless rain. The weather wasn't just atmospheric, it was a character. The cinematography captures the moorland's desolation so vividly that you feel the wind biting your skin. But what truly sets this adaptation apart is its raw emotional violence. Heathcliff's revenge isn't subtle, he's a man possessed, and Fiennes plays him with a feral intensity that borders on uncomfortable. The scene where he digs up Catherine's grave, that's not in the novel. The director added it to symbolize Heathcliff's obsession, and it became one of the most talked about moments in film. Critics were divided. Some called it overwrought, others mesmerizing. But audiences? They were devastated. The film earned just $1.3 million at the box office, a commercial failure that has since grown into a cult classic. Why does it belong at number 2? Because it captures the novel's core: love as a destructive force. It's not romantic, it's shattering. You walk away feeling like you've been battered by the moor wind. If you thought this was intense, the film that outranks it makes the moors look like a sunny meadow. Imagine a film so devastating that audiences left theaters in stunned silence, unable to speak or even look at each other. The Boys of St Vincent is that movie, a Canadian docudrama from 1992 that didn't just expose a scandal, it became the scandal. Based on true events at the Mount Cashel Orphanage in Newfoundland, the film reveals a nightmare of systemic abuse hidden behind church walls. But here's what you probably don't know. The director, John N. Smith, initially struggled to find funding. No one wanted to touch this story. It was deemed too dark, too disturbing. Smith even had to convince the actors, many of them local, that this was a story that needed to be told. One actor, for instance, played a priest based on a real figure who was still alive during production. The actor later said the role haunted him for years. The film's budget was a mere $2 million, yet it triggered a wave of apologies from the Canadian government and a reopening of investigations. Critics praised its unflinching realism. Roger Ebert called it a film that demands to be seen, but will be hard to forget. At number 1 on our list, The Boys of St Vincent shatters your soul because it doesn't let you escape. There's no catharsis, no neat resolution, just the haunting truth that evil can wear a collar and smile. It leaves you with a hollow ache and a desperate hope that such stories are never buried again. These 5 films share a brutal honesty. They refuse to look away from the pain we try to hide. They mirror our own capacity for cruelty, longing, and despair, asking us to sit with discomfort instead of fleeing. In doing so, they remind us that sometimes the most profound connection comes from witnessing the broken parts of ourselves reflected on screen. So here's the question. Which of these shattered you most completely, and was it the film's story or its echo of your own life that did the damage? We want to hear your scars. Drop your answer below, because the only way to survive these films is to talk about them together.